Do you think the season is over, or can they salvage this and make a deep playoff run somehow?
Well, it should absolutely be over, but the NFC West, everybody's within one game. So theoretically, it's not over. I mean, by all intents and purposes, it is. They're 5-6. They're not playing well. They haven't won. Have they won 2 in a row? I mean, it's been a long time. And it's just, they've had a rough year, but I would say kind of by default, because they do still have 2 division games left, one against the Rams, one against the Cardinals, and there's only one game separating the entire division. They got a shot. They still got a shot of making it to the playoffs, but it really feels like the season's over.
Yeah, even if they make it to the playoffs by winning the division with the 10-7 record or whatever they finally get to, it just feels like the kind of team that would lose in the first round, maybe by a lot, to a superior team, kind of like what we saw this past Sunday. Like, at what point is this team going to I think the phrase of the season is lock in. At what point is this team going to lock in and tackle like it cares or play a full 60-minute game? I mean, the fact that we're at week 13 and we haven't seen that yet makes me feel like even if they get all the breaks, they're not going to do anything with them.
Yeah, I mean, the beginning of football is run the ball, stop the run. They can't do either. They were running it great until they brought McCaffrey back, and now Shanahan's fallen in love with McCaffrey and forgot that he had Mason and Garendo in a top 10 run game, and now suddenly they don't have a top 10 run game. They're 20th with McCaffrey, so they can't run it. They really can't stop the run. And it doesn't look like anybody outside of Malik Mustafa wants to hit anybody. Everybody looks like they want to just corral everybody and kind of direct them towards the sidelines and maybe sort of get a hit in a group of guys and maybe knock them down. But the only guy who's actually out there playing for keeps is Malik Mustafa.
So I guess I'm trying to think of it like from David Lombardi's perspective. Like, how would he sell this? That there's hope left, because that's what he does.
Looking good. Everybody's fast. Everybody's breaking tackles.
Well, Greenlaw's coming back.
CMC, and in Dave's world, everything's hunky dory right now.
Yeah, in Dave's world, Christian McCaffrey looks just like he did last year. Deebo Samuel hasn't lost a step at all. Greenlaw's coming back. Could be in a couple of weeks. All they got to do is hang around until week 15 or something, and then lock in mid-December with when Greenlaw comes back. And maybe Hargrave comes, but when Greenlaw comes back, is Greenlaw going to change everything? We keep waiting for like one player to come back and change everything. McCaffrey hasn't been able to do it. Can Greenlaw do it?
I mean, Greenlaw's going to help. There's no question. I mean, we haven't seen Dre Greenlaw fully rested and healthy at this point in the year ever. So I'm actually pretty excited about what he can contribute, but he's still coming off an Achilles, and who knows, what he's going to bring to the table. And it's asking way too much. They were already a year ago asking Warner and Greenlaw to do all of the heavy lifting in the run D, and those guys were just so damn good at what they did that they covered for everybody else. But this run D thing has been a problem for multiple seasons now. They didn't stop the run last year in the preseason. They didn't stop the run last year in the playoffs, and that was with Greenlaw. And the fact that they ran it back this year, and we're like, oh, yeah, we'll take off Greenlaw and we'll plug in Devondre Campbell, and we're still a Super Bowl. I mean, you're delusional. They were delusional in thinking that Campbell was going to replace Greenlaw. So it's asking too much to ask Greenlaw to save the season, but he should help.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the fallacy here is the Niners aren't a player away. I think what's wrong with this particular team is the coaches are doing a very bad job across the board. I mean, obviously Brian Schneider's not going to be here next year. Nick Sorensen's doing a bad job. The Niners defense is terrible in the red zone. And the Niners offense is terrible in the red zone. Like, the Niners are moving the ball, whether they have Jordan Mason, Brandon Allen, they can move the ball out there. It's just when they get into the red zone, they can't score no matter who the players are. And I feel like that's got to come back to Kyle Shanahan. So if they're going to lock in and actually win the division in a few playoff games, Kyle, Sorensen, and Schneider are all going to have to do a much better job down the stretch.
They can't even just get their players on the field. So I don't really have a lot of hope that they can scheme to beat an opponent that's talented, because they can't even get their best players on the field. JP Mason and Garendo are both averaging over 5 yards a carry, and neither have been seen from, for the most part, in any kind of meaningful way since McCaffrey came back. McCaffrey, I mean, they brought McCaffrey back, and their running game has regressed. So Shanahan can't seem to get his best backs on the field for whatever reason, loyalty, blindness, I'm not sure what. Forrester can't seem to get his best offensive lineman out there because he keeps telling us that that Jake Brendel's great, but Pro Football Focus keeps telling us that he's fucking awful. Yeah. So somebody's lying, all right? Yeah. And only one of them has a good relationship with Jake Brendel, so we know who that is. So, you know, Forrester can't get his best line out there. Shanahan can't get his best running backs out there. Sorensen can't get his best linebackers
it's
out.
It's debatable if Shanahan got his best backup quarterback out there.
You can debate. You can debate that if you want. Is Shanahan playing the best quarterback he can play? But they're not.
The guy that he played had 9 healthy fingers.
Right. Brandon Allen had a broken index finger or middle finger.
Yeah, it was in a splint and he fumbled twice.
But I mean, once again, I'll say this about that one. I don't have a real strong opinion on that. I mean, I watched every practice and every preseason moment and everything like everybody else, but I don't have a real strong.
Yeah, because Dobbs would have lost that game for sure as well.
I mean, and Purdy would have lost that game.
Yep.
And Dobbs is 3-11. So I just have a hard time going put in Dobbs because I know he's 3-11.
That's fair.
But maybe Dobbs would have been better. To me, Dobbs and Allen are basically the same. They're just a different. They have a little, maybe Dobbs a little bit higher ceiling, little lower floor. You know, maybe Allen's a little safer on the floor, a little lower ceiling. But I knew Shanahan, and you did too. We knew Shanahan. Lynch said it this morning. He was asked about by KMBR why Allen over Dobbs. He's like, well, this was a decision that we made, and he paused, and I'm like, I know he's going to say back in July, and he's like, back in training camp. You know, it's like they did. They had what they thought was a battle between Allen and Dobbs. They decided they wanted Allen, and that's it. There's been no movement in that battle since camp.